The FIA just hit Verstappen with a shock ruling that changes everything. Could this be the end of his aggressive racing style? What's the sequence of the events? Stay tuned to find out. And we've got some exciting Formula news for you, so stick around until the end to catch all the latest updates. Verstappen shocked as FIA unveils new rules targeting aggressive tactics. In recent weeks, Max Verstappen has drawn considerable attention and criticism for his aggressive driving in Austin and Mexico. His actions have sparked a renewed debate among drivers and officials alike, many of whom feel it's time for Verstappen to adjust his approach on the track. With only 4 races and 2 sprint events left in a close championship, even drivers in 4th place theoretically still have a shot at winning the title. As tensions rise, questions loom over whether Verstappen will heed the pressure to alter his style or risk harsher penalties from the stewards. Verstappen's driving in Austin followed the rules closely, strategically defending his position against Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz, particularly by staying ahead at the apex. However, Mexico was a different story. Verstappen received 2 10-second penalties, which many in the paddock felt were overly strict. Critics, including Christian Horner, pointed out that these penalties came from stewards who allegedly favor Red Bull's rivals, a perception that's only inflamed the situation. Horner cited incidents where the driver on the outside was given an advantage over the driver defending from the inside line, which has not typically been the case in motorsport. A majority of drivers agree that the type of racing Verstappen demonstrated in recent rounds is overly aggressive. Norris, who believes his race in Mexico was compromised by Verstappen's tactics, argued that he could have contended for victory had Verstappen not forced him wide. McLaren's recent improvements have made Norris a formidable competitor, and the frustration is evident. George Russell echoed this sentiment, noting that 19 out of 20 drivers are aligned in their belief that racing rules should change now instead of waiting until 2025. From the perspective of Red Bull and Horner, these penalties are being overly enforced, which detracts from the natural flow of racing. Horner expressed that racing shouldn't require drivers to constantly consult a rule book, and traditional norms about outside-line racing should be respected. However, Verstappen himself isn't as focused on the penalties as he is on the competition's pace, especially with Ferrari and McLaren posing real threats in both drivers' and constructors' championships. Verstappen's aggressive tactics have roots that go back to 2021, when he was lauded for his competitive edge. Yet, with the FIA's stricter stance, maneuvers that push rivals off track could now carry a 10-second penalty, a big shift from previous interpretations. Verstappen is known for understanding the rulebook inside and out, and although he's expected to adapt, it's likely he will still push the limits of racing etiquette. Toto Wolff commented on Verstappen's approach, admiring his rule-based approach, but also agreeing that penalties like the recent 20-second addition were warranted. He acknowledged that the updated interpretation from the stewards could bring a fundamental shift in how drivers approach overtakes and defenses. Moving forward, there's likely to be a stronger emphasis on keeping the battle within track limits, especially given the stewards' apparent commitment to clamping down on forceful moves. Ultimately, Verstappen remains resolute, with both Horner and his father, Jos Verstappen, supporting his determined racing style. Jos voiced his opinion that Max is unlikely to change, regardless of increased penalties or stewards' decisions. For now, Verstappen seems undeterred, focusing instead on his championship lead and upcoming challenges. With a possible engine-related grid penalty looming for the Interlagos GP, Verstappen's approach will undoubtedly be scrutinized as the season reaches its intense final rounds. In our view, Verstappen's racing style undeniably brings excitement to Formula One, embodying the fierce, uncompromising spirit that fans love. However, there's a fine line between competitive racing and crossing the boundaries of fair play. As drivers and teams push harder each season, especially with closely matched rivals, the need for consistent rules becomes more pressing. The recent penalties in Mexico and Austin indicate a shift towards stricter enforcement, aiming to create a fairer and safer racing environment for everyone on the grid. If applied consistently, This approach could prevent similar incidents and enhance the quality of on-track battles. Yet, it's also essential to acknowledge that these racing controversies add drama and dimension to the sport, which thrives on intense rivalries and differing philosophies. While the stewards must ensure regulations are respected, the FIA and teams alike will need to strike a balance that allows for spirited, hard racing without compromising sportsmanship. Verstappen's adaptability and knowledge of the rulebook mean he'll likely adjust where necessary, but his bold approach will continue to test the limits, a characteristic that keeps Formula One thrilling for drivers and fans alike. What do you think as fans of Formula One? Do you believe Verstappen's aggressive racing style adds excitement and intensity to the sport, or do you feel it crosses the line and undermines fair play? With recent penalties highlighting a shift towards stricter regulation, is this the right move for maintaining competitive but clean racing, or does it risk over-regulating the passion and boldness that make F1 so thrilling? Hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments your opinion.
See you soon.